Have you ever loved something so much it broke you? Not because it failed you, but because it could never stay. If you've ever smiled in a room full of people and still felt invisible, if you've ever laughed and felt lonelier after, this is your story. It sits behind your ribs like a second heartbeat, pulsing, whispering, pulling you somewhere you cannot name. You never meant to carry it. That quiet ache just behind your heartbeat, that invisible thread pulling you towards something you could never reach. Maybe you noticed it when you were a child, staring out of a car window, watching the sunset peel open the sky like an old letter you weren't allowed to finish reading. Maybe you felt it when you fell in love for the first time, when everything inside you said this is it, and still, some part of you slipped through your own fingers. There's a beauty you have touched, but only for a breath, only for a heartbeat. A beauty so pure the world could only break it. Carl Jung believed this ache wasn't a flaw. He believed it was a map. He wrote that longing itself, the unbearable, unsatisfied yearning at the core of human life, was not a mistake to fix, but a bridge. A bridge between the small life you can see and the vast life you were meant for. You were not made to find it. You were made to remember it. And if you're listening to this now, it means some part of you has always remembered. But there's a trap hidden inside that memory, isn't there? The more you chase it, the more it disappears. The harder you cling, the emptier your hands become, until the question creeps in. Maybe you're just broken. Maybe the dream was a lie. But what if the dream wasn't a lie at all? What if you are not broken, only homesick for something you once knew and have not yet become? This is where the real story begins. Carl Jung called it the transcendent function, the invisible tension where opposites collide, hope and despair, longing and acceptance, the real and the impossible. It's not a destination you reach, it's a storm you learn to survive. And if you are built like the romantic, if your soul carries the blueprint of the exiled one, you live inside that storm every day. Maybe you've never admitted it out loud. Maybe you've hidden it even from yourself, but deep down you know. You've been carrying a hunger that nothing in this world has ever satisfied. You dream of a love so perfect, no relationship can carry it. You imagine a life so luminous, no ordinary moment can contain it. You chase sunsets, songs, strangers' eyes, not to possess them, but to capture something beyond them, something shining just out of reach. But what if it was never about reaching it? What if you're not chasing a person or a moment or a dream at all? What if you're chasing a world that was never meant to exist here? What if the very thing you long for was never supposed to be caught? Jung warned that if we don't understand this, we spend our lives projecting it outward, onto lovers, onto success, onto every next horizon, believing fulfillment is just one grasp away. But it isn't. It was never outside you, and it was never meant to be. Scientists have found something staggering. Even after achieving their greatest dreams, most people's happiness returns to baseline within 3 months. Because longing isn't solved by arrival. It was never designed to end. The world cannot hold the beauty you were made for. And that is not a tragedy, that is a beginning. Because the longing you carry isn't asking you to find something better out there. It's asking you to become something deeper in here. Not to possess beauty, but to embody it. Not to chase it, but to awaken it. You are not meant to solve the ache. You are meant to grow large enough to hold it. There's an old story whispered beneath Persian skies. Each year, a woman prepares for Amu Nowruz, the spirit of the new day. She lays out her finest clothes, perfumes her hair with jasmine, decorates her table with every sweet thing she owns, and every year, just before he arrives, she falls asleep. Every year she wakes to find the feast untouched, the door unopened, the dream already gone. If you have carried a deep longing, you know this ache too well. You spend your life preparing for a day that never quite arrives. You build entire worlds inside your heart. A love that will finally make you whole. A moment that will finally make you feel seen. And just when it seems within reach, it fades like mist at sunrise. You search for home across cities, across years, across faces and promises. And still you find yourself standing in another doorway, looking at a life that somehow doesn't feel like it belongs to you. Maybe it hits you when you're laughing with friends, a perfect evening, a perfect smile. And still, a quiet part of you whispers, you're still not home. Maybe it hit you the first time you realized that birthdays and holidays, those perfect snapshots everyone seemed to treasure, always left you lonelier than before. Maybe it was when you hugged someone you loved and still felt an empty room inside your chest. If you've ever felt homesick for a place you can't even remember, you already know this ache. You wonder if you're ungrateful. You wonder if you're broken. But what if you're not broken at all? Carl Jung understood what so few dare to name. He saw that the soul doesn't suffer because it has no place. It suffers because the world is too small for what it remembers. He warned that if we refuse to face this truth, we will project it outward, onto lovers, onto futures, onto places that were never meant to carry the weight of our remembering. What if the very act of chasing is what keeps the wound open? Think about it. We scroll through old photos at midnight, hearts twisting, longing for a version of ourselves we barely knew how to hold when we had it. We mourn the present even while we live it. We grieve the sunset while the sun is still setting. That bittersweet tension between what is and what could have been, it's not a mistake. It's the blueprint of your soul. The home you seek was never built from stone or wood. It cannot be found in someone's arms or in a city's skyline. It lives in the part of you that knows how to ache without hardening. It lives in the place where longing deepens your capacity for love instead of closing you off from it. The longing is not proof that you are lost. It is proof that something sacred is alive in you, something vast enough to hold both beauty and absence without giving up. And sacred things were never meant to fit inside easy walls. There's a cruel trick that longing plays on the soul. The very dream that once gave you wings can become the cage that keeps you trapped. You think, if I can just find it, the right person, the right moment, the right life, then the ache will end. Then I will be whole. You run harder, you climb higher, you cut pieces off yourself just to fit the shape of the thing you're chasing. But every time you touch the horizon, it moves. Every time you grab the gold, it turns to dust. What if the very thing you thought would save you is the thing keeping you lost? Carl Jung warned of this trap. He called it the danger of projection, the way we take the missing parts of our own soul and cast them onto the world like shadows, mistaking reflections for reality. He wrote about the anima, the inner image of ideal love, and how it can possess us, driving us to chase after things that could never truly carry the weight of what we have forgotten. You don't fall in love with the person. You fall in love with the mirror. You fall in love with the echo of a home you once knew but can no longer name. You tell yourself, if I can just achieve it, if I can just arrive, the hunger will stop. But scientists studying human behavior found something astonishing. Even the greatest successes, even the most perfect triumphs, bring a happiness that fades back to baseline within months. Because the fulfillment was never in the trophy, it was never in the dream, it was in the transformation. The world cannot hold the weight of your soul. No achievement, no lover, no moment can fix the beautiful ache of becoming. But maybe, just maybe, it was never supposed to. The longing isn't asking you to chase harder. It's asking you to let go of the fantasy that the world will ever complete you, to let go of the idea that your value depends on arrival, to realize that you were never chasing a thing. You were being shaped into a soul large enough to walk through this world carrying beauty. and emptiness side by side, and still remain open. You don't lose when you stop chasing the dream. You win when you realize you were never chasing a dream at all. You were chasing the deepest parts of yourself, trying to remember what you already are. And yet, what if the ache was never your enemy? For most of your life, you thought the longing was the wound. It kept you restless when others seemed satisfied. It made you ache in the middle of moments that should have been enough. It left you standing in rooms full of laughter, feeling like a ghost. Maybe you were told you were too much. Maybe you feared you were never enough, and still, the ache never let you give up. You told yourself you were cursed. You told yourself you were broken. You told yourself that if you could just stop wanting so much, you could finally be happy. But what if the longing was never the wound? What if it was the proof that your soul was awake? Carl Jung understood what few ever dare to say. He knew that longing is not a sickness. It is a sign that you are alive in a world that often forgets what life even is. Because when you ache for something you cannot touch, you are being stretched beyond the surface of life, beyond convenience, beyond comfort. The longing cuts through your numbness. It tears open the false peace of the easy life. It refuses to let you fall asleep at the wheel of your own existence. It dares you to see beauty even in its absence. It dares you to stay soft in a world that rewards shutting down. It dares you to remember what it means to be human. There is a reason the most powerful art, the most unforgettable music, the most soul-breaking poetry comes from those who have lived closest to their own longing. There is a reason the people who love most deeply have often lost most profoundly. Because longing, when it is faced instead of fled, deepens the soul until it can hold the weight of real life. Without it, you would remain shallow. Without it, you would accept the lie that safety is the goal of life. But with it, with this sacred, relentless ache inside your chest, you are carved into something vast enough to hold contradictions. Strong enough to love without needing to own, brave enough to stand in the space between what is and what could have been, and still call it beautiful. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient songs carved into bone flutes 30,000 years ago, songs of mourning for lands their singers had never seen. They carved their homes into cliffs. They painted their longing onto the dark walls of caves, hoping someone would hear them across time. Even then, even at the beginning, humanity was already aching for something beyond its grasp. You were never meant to fix the longing. You were meant to let it shape you into the only thing that could carry it. A soul that doesn't just survive the ache, but sings with it. You're not broken because you long for more. You're broken open, and that is how the light gets in. The world will tell you to chase it, the perfect love, the perfect dream, the perfect life. It will whisper it from billboards, it will shout it from screens, it will lure you with promises it cannot keep. But there is a voice deeper than all the noise, a voice Jung spent his life trying to help others hear. It says something harder, it says something infinitely more beautiful. It says stop chasing, it says become. Become the love you thought you had to find, become the beauty you thought you had to capture, become the dream you thought you had to chase. Because you will never touch that beauty out there. Not the way your soul remembers it. The world is too fragile, the moments are too fleeting, the people are too human. But that doesn't mean the beauty isn't real. It means it was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be reflected. You are part of something ancient. You are part of the same hunger that once carved cathedrals, wrote epics, sailed beyond the edge of maps. They carved their sorrow into stone. They stitched it into songs. They gave it to the stars, hoping someone, somewhere, would answer. You can touch that beauty every time you stay open when it would be easier to close. You can touch it every time you turn your loneliness into kindness, your sorrow into creation, your exile into a bridge for others who feel lost. You can touch it every time you let the longing carve you deeper and still rise gentler. The longing will never leave you, and that is not your punishment. It is your inheritance. Longing keeps you awake. Longing keeps you soft. Longing keeps you becoming. Stay, grow, break open if you must, but never stop becoming. If you have ever carried a longing so deep it hurt to speak it aloud, you are not alone. If you have ever lived between what is and what could have been, you are not broken. You are part of a lineage older than memory. You are part of a story still being written in the quiet places of the soul. This longing, this becoming, this endless reaching for a beauty unseen, it is who you are. Stay, grow, become. This journey is ours. And the beauty you thought you could never touch is the beauty you are becoming.